These are the top 10 haunted cemeteries you never want to enter. I'm your host Andrew, and let's get right into this. At number 10 spot, we have Boot Hill Cemetery. Oddly enough, the Boot Hill Cemetery is located in a town named Tombstone in Arizona. Coincidence? I think not. Now, to educate some of you, the term Boot Hill came from the hundreds of outlaws who would pass away wearing their boots. Since these outlaws were not from the town, they would have them buried at this cemetery. This means that the cemetery is filled with pretty bad people, and not only that, they are buried here alone and away from their family. So it's really no surprise that their spirits are really pissed off. However, for many visitors, that's not even the most unsettling thing about this place. When you begin to investigate it, you'll notice that the criminals are buried right beside their victims, with the details of their crimes written on the tombstone. Ever wanted to visit a cemetery holding the most notorious criminals in America? Then this place might be for you. At number 9 spot, we have Georgiana Cemetery. The Georgiana Cemetery, otherwise known as the Crooked Mile Cemetery, is a graveyard in Florida that dates sometime in the early 1800s, which would mean that much of these graves were early settlers, which is pretty odd to think about when you walk these grounds. Now, locals believe that the cemetery is haunted by one spirit, and a very aggressive one. They believe it's the ghost of a local murder victim named Ethel Allen, who was only 19 years old when he was found murdered and mutilated on the banks of the Indian River Lagoon in the early 1900s. The case would end up going cold, and he would be laid to rest inside of the cemetery, and ever since, the atmosphere of this place feels completely off. At number 8 spot, we have the Natchez City Cemetery. This cemetery is pretty normal from the outside, nothing too haunting from its appearance, and not enough history to make the place horrifying. However, when you walk these grounds, you may stumble upon a very odd grave. This is the grave with stairs. This eerie grave belonged to a girl named Florence Irene Ford. Then in 1871, shortly after her 10th birthday, she passed away from yellow fever. So the reason for these stairs: when the daughter was alive, she was always terrified of storms. So since she has now passed, the mother decided to build stairs down to her casket in order to comfort her daughter when it got stormy. I mean, it's such a sweet idea until you realize it's also kind of scary. She would go down these stairs, close a trap door above her, sit in complete darkness while singing hymns and songs to her daughter. I could only imagine what the people walking by must have thought. Others believe that you can still hear the daughter yourself when it's stormy weather and you decide to walk down these steps. At number 7 spot, we have Highgate Cemetery. The cemetery in its original form was made by the Bishop of London on the 20th of May 1839. It was part of an initiative to provide 7 large modern cemeteries to ring the city of London. In 1970, Highgate Cemetery became rundown, overgrown, and undeniably spooky. In February of that year, David Ferrant claimed he had seen something strange, a ghost-like figure. He became convinced that satanic rituals had been taking place within Highgate Cemetery grounds, and that an evil entity had been summoned there from another realm. At number 6 spot, we have Hollywood Cemetery. The local residents of the town have made claims that the mausoleum of W.W. Poole holds the remains of a vampire. However, this is not your ordinary vampire. The story goes that in 1925, the Churchill train tunnel collapsed with workers still inside. Now, the tragedy of that is very real, but surprisingly, in the wreckage, a bloody man appeared with jagged teeth and skin hanging from their bones. Everyone had thought it was just a mere survivor of the incident, but here is where it gets kind of weird. As they get closer to the man quickly jumped and ran away to the nearby Hollywood Cemetery and disappeared into this mausoleum. They say that the vampire still inhabits the cemetery grounds, which has led many satanic and cult groups to visit in an attempt to summon the vampire once again. In the hunt for a list, we have the Bonaventure Cemetery. Established all the way back in 1846, the Bonaventure Cemetery has been the most photographed cemetery in America. Much of that is due to its undeniable beauty, but after thousands of photos, there have been more than a few unexplained things caught on camera. The most notorious tombstone is that of a 6-year-old named Little Gracie Watson. Gracie Watson was born in 1882 and grew up in the Pulaski House Hotel that her parents W.J. and Frances Watson ran. Unfortunately, when Gracie was 7, she contracted pneumonia and passed away on April 22nd, 1889. So in honor of her untimely death, a beautiful statue of her sitting was built. Nowadays, many guests leave offerings and gifts such as toys, flowers, and nice notes for her. But when people try to steal these gifts, she will cry tears of blood. Others have said they see the little girl smiling at them as they walk by, while others report hearing children cries from underneath her tombstone. At number 4 spot, with the Oddfellow Masonic Masonic Cemetery. Unfortunately for those living in Lafayette, but your city has been supposedly cursed since the 1800s. The story goes that back in the early 1850s, a woman in the town was accused of witchcraft, which is pretty common back in those days. And just before her execution, she yelled out to the people watching, saying that the town would burn down a total of 3 times. And ever since, the town has burned down twice, and people are still waiting that 3rd time. Later, the alleged witch was buried in the Oddfellow Masonic Cemetery, where it's said that she has walked up to more than a few visitors during some nights. At a number 3 spot, we have Graceland Cemetery. The town of Mineral Point in southwest Wisconsin was terrorized by a vampire for a short period of time. More specifically, these sightings were first reported back in 1981. It was a snowy night when police officer John Pepper got calls saying there was a mysterious figure that looked like a vampire walking around the cemetery. When the officer arrived, he immediately noticed it, but supposedly it began to run at incredible speeds to the point when it lost the officer within seconds. After the report was completed, not another vampire sighting would happen until 23 years later in 2004. This is when several eyewitnesses claimed that a strange slender man was attacking people by jumping from them atop trees. The police arrived again only to see the figure run away at supernatural speeds. Then in 2008, a couple was fishing when they spotted a tall, pale, slender man with alleged fangs approaching them. Luckily, they noticed it immediately and pulled out a flashlight to see it more clearly, and they claimed that the light started to physically hurt the man, which led more and more people to believe it was actually a vampire. At number 2 spot, we have the Moon Point Cemetery. Just south of Streator in Livingston County lies the old graveyard named Moon Point Cemetery. It got its name from Jacob Moon, who along with his daughter and 3 sons was the first to settle that area. After years of war and other fatal tragedies, this place has been haunted by the ghosts of its past. One of these ghosts includes the ghost of a hatchet lady. Legend has it she has often visited the cemetery to watch over her son's grave after he passed away during the Civil War. Eventually, she would pass away as well, but immediately after, her ghost took up the vigil wielding a hatchet. She has been heard yelling and even whispering at visitors to get out of the area, and on some full moon nights, she is seen throwing hatchets around the cemetery. It doesn't help the fact that vandalism is happening at the cemetery, so it's basically confirmed that the spirits here are very unrested. All the way at a number 1 spot with the Salt Lake City Cemetery. In the middle of the Salt Lake City Cemetery sits a gravestone reading, quote, Lily E. Gray, June 6, 1881 to November 14, 1958, accompanied by the very ominous phrase, victim of the beast 666. Lillian remains a mystery, and her headstone forms a source of wild tales of her being sacrificed to Satan, or that she herself was a Satanist. Some have speculated that she was another innocent woman accused of witchcraft, but other theories claim that because Utah is full of ominous places, she probably died on Highway 666, one of the country's most infamous dangerous freeways. Well, these are the top 10 most haunted cemeteries you never want to enter. What do you guys think about this list? Leave a comment down below with what cemetery scared you guys the most. And be sure to like and subscribe for some more content. I'm your host Andrew, and I hope you guys have a scary day.